Good morning, fantastic readers. Today is our last day with our beautiful poster here. You'll see it hanging up when you come back into the classroom. And the reason it's our last day is because this was just our launch kit. When something launches, it means that it takes off and it kind of gets ready to do all the other things that it's supposed to be doing. So this was an exploration of all the things that we're going to be talking about this year in reading. And now, after we finish today, we'll be ready to dig a little bit deeper into each one of the things that we've been talking about. So remember, our learning intention has been that we will practice the characteristics of good readers by exploring different genres. Okay? And I feel like we really have done that. We've practiced the characteristics of good readers by thinking about how good readers listen carefully. They learn new words. We learned a lot of new words when we've been doing nonfiction just now. They make connections to our lives, and they share ideas and feelings. These things were a little bit easier when you were doing the fiction books because they told you stories, okay? But I have a feeling that today, with what we're going to be talking about, you might be able to make some connections to your lives with these nonfiction books, okay? So those are the characteristics of good readers. And then the different genres, we were talking about fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. Okay? So under success criteria, it says, I can understand the difference between fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and I can talk about what good readers do. That's going to be your job on Seesaw today, to show me that you have taken something away or learned something from this launch kit. You're going to see an exit ticket on Seesaw that asks you to put books in the different genre headings. You have to be able to look at them and say, oh, that one's fiction. Oh, that one's poetry. Okay? And then you're going to have to be able to tell the difference between them. So see the difference, then also tell the difference in words. And there's words on there for you to move as well. Okay? So after you've sorted the books and sorted the words into fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, there's going to be a spot down the bottom for you to tell which one of these is your favorite. Now that we've kind of explored them a little bit more, maybe you came into this unit liking fiction, but now you like nonfiction, or maybe you've never thought about poetry as a genre before, and maybe that's your new favorite. Okay, so there'll be a spot for you to tell me what your new favorite genre is and why, what you like about it. And then there's a place for you to tell me something that good readers do. So I don't want you to necessarily say, oh, good readers read all the words, or oh, good readers read fast. Because, yeah, maybe, but reading is more than that. I want you to think about some of the things that we talked about down here, or maybe go back in your brain to one of the other lessons that we did at the beginning, where we found a cozy spot and we stayed focused, and we talked about listening with our whole body. Any of those things are things that good readers do. So you get to pick what you want to do and say to record your voice. You don't have to write your answers or type your answers. You can just read those sentences to me and put your ideas in those blank spaces. But let's jump in for our last day of nonfiction here, because I'm really excited about this science topic. I had taught this to my first graders when I taught first grade up in Pennsylvania, and it's all about rocks. Now, rocks might not seem super cool and interesting, but I think the neatest part about rocks is they're everywhere, and they're pretty easy for you to find at your house or when you travel somewhere, to be able to see the differences in rocks and the, where you live versus where you're traveling. So these are all the different nonfiction books that we'll have in our classroom about rocks. Okay. And again, you can kind of see that the titles and the front covers look a bit different. Sometimes there's those photographs, like pictures that someone took with a camera. Sometimes there's people doing drawings about rocks. But as long as the book gives you true information and tries to teach you something, a fact, right, we can call it nonfiction. So the book I want to read to you today, is called Let's Go Rock Collecting. And so what I was trying to do is show you the differences in nonfiction books, because again, we're just exploring right now. We read the one on Force and Motion that had those photographs. Then we read the one on the sun, where the sun was drawn and kind of was told like a story, even though it was still giving you information. Then we read the living and non-living yesterday with the photographs, and now we're going to go back to nonfiction that has illustrations, because I want you to be able to see that nonfiction books don't just have to have pictures, that they can have some drawings as well. All right? So let's go rock collecting. Hopefully, this is going to teach you something new about rocks, and maybe with your extra time today or tomorrow, maybe we'll do like an assignment where you go outside and do some rock collecting for us. I think that would be really fun. So it says, people collect all kinds of things. They collect coins, stamps, baseball cards, shells, toys, bottles, pictures, and cats. Some people collect things that are very old. The older, the better. And I know that we know Miss Atwood collects some cool Betty Boop stuff. Right, Miss Atwood?
That's right.
I don't have a collection yet, but maybe now that I'm in my new house, I'll decide on something to collect. The oldest things that you can collect are rocks. Most of them are millions and millions of years old. Most kinds of rocks are easy to find, but some, like diamonds and emeralds, are rare. That's what makes them valuable. So I know a lot of you guys like to play Minecraft, so some of these words might be familiar to you from Minecraft, since that's all about, you know, different kinds of rocks, I think. It says rocks cover the whole earth. No matter where you live on rock. There is rock under city streets and country farms. There is rock under every ocean, lake, and river. And again, visuals, like pictures here, are so important to nonfiction books because they add extra to what the author is trying to tell you. So we have crust, solid rock layer, crust, and then we can see again that there's still that solid rock layer even underwater, like a lake or an ocean. The Romans built roads out of rocks. The roads are still used today. Things made with rocks last and last. And the reason I did this last for you guys is because it does really relate to how old the earth is when we were learning about space, and it relates to living and non-living things like we talked about yesterday. Because we talked about how living things don't really last for a very long time because they are alive, but rocks are non-living, so they last for a really long time. Rocks that make up the surface of the earth are called the earth's crust. Most of the crust is made of igneous rock. Igneous means made by heat. Inside the earth, it is very, very hot. Hot enough to melt rock. The melted rock is called magma. Sometimes the magma pushes through cracks in the crust. When magma comes to the surface, it is called lava. The lava cools and becomes very hard. It becomes igneous rock. Most of the Earth's igneous rock comes from volcanoes on the sea floor. And again, here's that visual information showing you more. Okay? So I learned that there's magma that shoots up out of volcanoes and becomes lava once it's outside of the volcano and it runs down, and then when it cools off, it becomes really hard instead of being hot and melty, and that's when you get igneous rock. Look at these beautiful photographs. It says the crystals in granite are called quartz. Some pieces of quartz are white like milk. Others are clear like glass. Granite is an igneous rock. It was once magma. Some granite is gray with small shiny black and white crystals, and some granite has large pink, black, and white crystals. So you may have seen granite in people's houses, or you may have seen granite at restaurants. Sometimes people use it for countertops or floors, but it's a really hard stone. Basalt is another kind of igneous rock. It is usually dark in color, gray, green, or black. It is the most common of all igneous rocks. Sometimes quartz has bands of many colors. Jewelry is made from it, and the marbles you play with it may be banded with quartz. So all of these are different kinds of igneous rock. And again, if you were to go rock collecting or go on some kind of rock hunt, you might be able to see or find these different kinds of rocks. This is a pretty neat page. I hope this gives you some new information. It says, not all rocks are hard. Some rocks are soft. Talc is so soft you can pinch it into a powder with your fingers. Talc is number 1 on a scale for hardness of rocks. The scale is called Mohs scale of hard rocks, and it goes from 1 to 10. Quartz is all the way at number 7, and diamonds are number 10. They are the hardest rocks in the world. Each mineral on the scale can scratch the mineral below it. A fingernail has a hardness of about 2.5, so your fingernail can leave a scratch in talc, but not in calcite or diamonds. So again, we'll look more at this kind of stuff when we start to really study rocks, when we get to this in science. This is just kind of to get you excited about learning about rocks. Not all rocks are igneous rocks. Some are made of sediments. Sandstone is one kind of sedimentary rock. It is made of grains of sand, mud, and pebbles. Millions of years ago, sand was blown into rivers, and the rivers carried the sand along and dropped it into lakes or oceans. Layer after layer settled on the bottom of lakes and seas, and the top layers pressed down on the bottom layers. Slowly, the lower layers of sand turned into stone. You'll know sandstone when you see it. It is often soft and grainy. Rub it with your fingers and grains of sand may come off. And again, here's a really great visual talking about how the rivers carry that mud and pebbles and sand, and then, as they flow, they drop some of it down to the bottom, and that builds up in these layers over time. And as one layer gets heavier and pushes down on the next, and it gets heavier and heavier, it pushes down so hard, and it takes a really long time, but it can turn it into rock. Another sedimentary rock is limestone. It is made of shells of animals that lived millions of years ago. Most often, limestone is white, but it can be pink, tan, and other colors. Sometimes you can see the outlines of shells in limestone. That would be pretty cool to find, an outline of a shell. Limestone is used to make cement. Cement is then mixed with sand, gravel, and water to make concrete for sidewalks. So if you go outside your house and you have a sidewalk, or you're going for a walk somewhere on the sidewalk, you're standing on limestone because it had to be mixed in with other things to make that cement. So maybe if you look close, you can see little pieces of rock inside the sidewalk. You may even be able to find like an outline of a shell. You'll have to go out and look. 5,000 years ago, the Egyptians built the pyramids out of limestone, and they are still standing. Maybe someday you'll go to Egypt and see them. This was one of the words that Sarah talked about when she was exploring the library in Library Mouse. She was learning about the pyramids in Egypt. Besides igneous and sedimentary rocks, there's a third kind of rock in the Earth's crust. It's called metamorphic. Metamorphic means changed. Slate is a metamorphic rock because slate was once shale. But over millions of years, tons and tons and tons and tons of rocks pressed on it, and the pressure made the shale very hot, and the heat and the pressure changed it into slate. Most slate is gray, but some is black, red, or brown. And again, rocks are so cool because you can find them anywhere. So when I hear slate, it makes me think of the old house that we lived in Pennsylvania. It was built a really long time ago, and it had slate tile on the floors, and some of it was red, and some of it was black, and some of it was brown. Other metamorphic rocks are made the same way that slate is, by heat and pressure. Some metamorphic rocks are so changed that you can't tell what they once were. Granite can turn into gneiss. It was once a piece of gray granite, but now it is a darker gray, and its crystals have separated into layers. So this rock, with heat and pressure, can turn into this rock over here. It says limestone turns into marble. Some marble has colored marks that look like clouds. Sandstone turns into quartzite. It may still look like sedimentary sandstone, but now it is much harder. And that's what my countertops are made of at my house. So my countertops were sandstone when it was out in the earth, and then the earth pressed down on it and made it so heavy and so hot that they turned it into quartzite, and then somebody went and found that quartzite and dug it up and made it into a countertop. When you start collecting rocks, you'll find out how many different varieties there really are. One way to start a collection is to look for rocks of different colors. You'll find there are pink rocks, black rocks, and pure white ones. There are gray rocks and brown and yellow ones. See if you can tell what kind of rocks they are. You can keep your rocks in a small egg carton, or you can keep larger ones in cardboard boxes with dividers like this one. So again, I thought that might be a fun activity for you to do today or tomorrow or even over intercession, would be to start your very own rock collection. You can look for rocks of different colors and different sizes. You can find smooth rocks and bumpy rocks, and then you could take a picture of them and post them on Seesaw, and then we can put them on the Seesaw blog for people to see all the cool rocks that you collected. It says, rock collecting is fun, and one of the best things about it is you can do it anywhere. Wherever you go, try to find new rocks and add them to your collection. And that's totally true, because the rocks that I would find up in Pennsylvania look different and feel different than the rocks that I find down here, because the Earth's crust is different and it's always changing. So I challenge you to go out, find some cool rocks, and to do your exit ticket on Seesaw about the different genres we've learned about in this launching kit and about what we've talked about for what good readers do. I'll see you guys later.